Hey friends, welcome to episode 604 of the My 123 Cents podcast. And this week I am talking with my friend Tyler Heath Hatton, Stride Pro Wrestling, making a comeback. Once again, we were doing fall shows, it seems like in October, November, fundraiser shows, but a very special request came out from the Southern, I almost said Miners. It's not the Southern Illinois Miners, it's the Thrillbillies here in Marion as well. Tyler, what's going on? Talk about how things are going for you, and then let us know about the Thrillbillies and what's happening with Stride Pro Wrestling.
What's going on, Marcus? Thanks for having me. I can't believe you've on 600 of these. I mean,
It's
we got to
crazy.
be down two viewers by now. No, everything's good. Teaching, coaching, living life. Daughter just graduated high school, as you know, so a little bit more free time and no, just with the Thrillville thing, we work closely with the stadium
Mhm.
on we have ball games there and things like that where they book, our softball team plays there, our baseball team played there, and so I have a good relationship with the manager, and he reached out and wanted to do a show. And at first I kind of was like, no, let me pass it on. And then he kind of kept on, and he called me, and was like, we really like to have you here and have your company here. And so we kind of went back and forth, and then he finally just texted me one day, and I was like, you know what? Actually, I think I messaged you, and I
Mhm.
messaged, Axe and a few people to see who would be interested. And they were like, yeah, we'll be there. So then I messaged him back, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. I really hadn't planned on doing anything. And he just randomly reached out and wanted Stride to do it.
Yeah, it is this Thursday night. If you're listening this week, it's Thursday, June 18th, 5:30 p.m. is bell time because they're also going to play a game that night. So, and I think there was some people asking on Facebook, but you buy a ticket for the ball game basically, and that gets you in early for the wrestling show. Is that right? Or there's not a separate entrance fee for this?
Nope. So you just buy a ticket to the game, and then we're just part of that. And so kind of like a almost equivalent to a first pitch situation. And it's just the entertainment before, and we'll wrestle before, and they have the game. And then yeah. So tickets to the game is how you get into the wrestling show. And I have no clue how much tickets are. I don't even know how much they are.
Yeah, people were asking, the beauty of the when it was the minors and the Frontier League, and now it's the Prospect League of the Thrillbillies. I mean, tickets are relatively inexpensive. I think what you would buy at a typical Stride show back in the day, $10 seats. I believe there are deals, and I think they do all kinds of food and beverage specials too, especially on Thursday nights. So it's going to be fun. We did those shows. We did a handful of shows at the ballpark back in the day, including I can't remember what company it was, but like the first time I uh, met a few guys, and it may have been AAPW promoting it. I don't remember, but like Jerry Lawler was there. That was the first time I met the Mississippi Madman, and I was just there as a fan. But what they do is put the ring up, or what we'll be doing too, is putting the ring up kind of off to the side. It won't be on the field, but we've been to TNA shows at the ballpark there. Jeff Jarrett, when he was doing Global Force Wrestling, did a show there. So there's been a precedence for outdoor shows like this. And do you like the outdoor atmosphere and the ballpark feel? Because we've done, Christopher Homecoming, we did the Pulaski County Fair. So we've done outdoor shows before, but what's been your experience with being outside, especially in the summertime?
I really honestly, I've never been a huge fan of outside shows. I feel like as a performer, when you're in the ring, it's really hard. Like I feel like it's harder to engage the crowd in a typical wrestling story.
Yeah.
Even when to be honest, when I watch WrestleMania, I don't really like the outside show.
Oh,
I
really?
always feel like it's flat. I don't know. And but as far as me as a performer, I'm not a huge fan of outside shows. But I always felt like when we do Pulaski County Fair, when we do these fair shows, Al Snow told me one time, he said, people come to a fair and they're like, I'm here for the fair. Oh, there's wrestling going on. And they walk over and they just want to be,
Mhm.
entertained. I can remember we did the beer thing with you
Oh
that
yeah,
you
that's
set up
right.
one time, and I remember we started wrestling, and this gigantic crowd came over and they watched like the first match, and then they were completely gone. And
Hmm.
then one of the referees had too much to drink, and I think they came back over because the referee was kind of made it entertaining. But anyway, then I remember I put on the Sasquatch outfit and
Yeah,
wrestled, and all of a sudden there's a huge crowd back over there,
yeah,
So I kind of feel like, yeah, outside shows, you never know what you're going to get. Now, I will say the ballpark show that we did where me and you wrestled as a tag team
hmm
and had the belts, and we had the ladder match, which Cash won, and we did that whole thing with where we built to Cash in, where Cash had all the belts, and
yeah,
he interfered. I really felt like that was a fun show. I felt like the crowd was real engaged, but as far as outside shows where it's hot or it's cold, and inside, you can hear the crowd better inside, and I feel like they're a little bit more engaged inside. That's just my personal preference.
sure. Well, do you find it too, like you mentioned, at the fair or at the brew fest as we did? um I'll be curious to see like the number of familiar faces we see, and because back in the heyday of Stride, when we did a show, even when we were on the road, you would have your group of regulars that would travel and go to Mount Vernon or Pinckneyville, because we were usually typically based either in Carterville or Marion. But there were times, like you said, we were on the road and going to different towns and communities, and the fans followed. So it'll be interesting to see those fans that come, that may not be baseball fans, and you can buy your ticket for $10, watch the wrestling show, and then dip out if you are so inclined. But I think they try to make the game and the concept of all this even more entertaining, and doing more of the fun stuff because of what we've seen with like the Savannah Bananas or those kinds of things, to make the game, having the prizes and the fun activities, because I think it's more than just wrestling going on Thursday night as well, in addition to the baseball game. So it'll be a fun night for sure. Kind of some sad news with Farmer Billy Hills having to retire. He, of course, was the reigning Stride Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, and this Thursday night, you've got two top competitors, two of the pillars, parting the stealing of that from the AEW side of things, but the pillars of Stride, and Cash Borden and Jay Spade, wrestling for that championship. Talk to me a little bit about that, and what you're looking forward to with those two, because they tore it up in that dog collar match. Gosh, it's Strideanniversary. Was it 2018, 2019, somewhere in that time frame?
Yeah, that's why I booked that match. Honestly, is I wanted to have a title match, and I had, to be honest, I'd thrown around the idea of doing a match with like some kind of, whether it was like a 6 man, something like that, where I was trying to get all the former champs to
Mm-hmm.
be in a match in some way, shape, or form. Red Daniels tore his ankle up.
Yeah.
Risers doesn't live around here, and then from there it kind of didn't work out. So then I thought about a fatal four way with me, Axe, Spade, Cash. Peyton Ayers. His shoot job makes it where he can't get there as easy. So anyway, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. Anyway, one of my favorite matches we talked about, I think we did a podcast of our favorite matches, and
Mhm.
Cash and Spade was one of them. So anyway, I know that they have good chemistry. They get along. I know Cash is really popular. Spade is, first Stride show to the last show, he
Mhm.
was there. So I really felt like it kind of made sense, and they're recognizable. And I feel like with, Spade doesn't work a lot outside of Stride, but he is a face of Stride. And I mean, to me, he'd be like Edwin, Livewire McGuire would be to AAPW. That's what Spade would be in a sense to Stride, and then Cash, obviously was huge at Stride, and then also he's just really popular on the independents and popular with what he does. So, from that point is why I really booked that, and selfishly, I just wanted to see them
Yeah,
lock up and wrestle.
absolutely. That's going to be great. Uh, Also, the No Limits champion Justin Durst defending against Jeff King. Durst won the belt. I think, gosh, was it 2 years ago now? I think it was 2 years ago he won it at the event out there at Crab Orchard School. Um, it's going to be, I think when you're putting together, and I know that Justin, you have a soft, not soft spot, but he is one of those guys that goes above and beyond the wrestling part of things. I know that he has been helpful in getting some stuff taken care of with when we were hauling the trailer with the ring and those kinds of things. So he's kind of one of those guys that rolls up his sleeves and gets the job done behind the scenes as well.
I was always big when I started Stride is guys that showed up and set up the ring and tore it down. Like I do have a soft spot for those, but it's more like a reward because I can think of the APW shows when it was me, you, Aaron, Hackstrom, and Curly and
Hmm.
Testa setting up the ring, just us, and I can remember after a show tearing it down and you know or coming in the next day and tearing it down and there being three people to set up an APW show.
Yeah.
And I can remember Sean, Carnage, Sean Maccabee messaging me that he needed me to help set up a ring. And so I got to where I always got, even when I guess made it bigger. I SICW, I wrestled a 60-minute Ironman match, or wasn't it was a 60-minute time limit draw.
Hmm.
And after the main event of this show at SICW, and then after I tore the ring down. So guys that did that meant more to me, and I just saw a wrestler on the Indies post, like I just drove 4 hours and helped set up the ring and stayed after and tore down. And he's a pretty big indie name. And so I've always, yeah, people that do that, like I'll always book, I'll always have a spot. And, and if you do those things to me, like, I mean, on an indie show, unless you're going to bring me in yourself 100 people, or you're going to make me $1,000 or whatever it is, then, and a lot of times that's just, not the case. I mean, it's just, it is what it is, so, and people, well, you're booking me. And I've paid my dues, and I come from the land of you never
Hmm.
stop paying your dues. You don't ever, these shows, we put them on because we like doing it. We like wrestling. We love wrestling, and we like doing it for the fans. And so yeah, so Justin is always, man, no matter what it was, he pulled the ring for us. He set it up. If something broke, he fixed it. Justin was always that guy that was always kind of like, I relied on a lot of times to do stuff.
I think
So
he had to weld the under I don't know what
yeah,
to call them.
yeah, it broke once and he had to
Yeah, it
weld it.
broke, and
Yeah.
he like in a pinch had to come and do that. Is if I remember that right. So that smaller yellow ring or lower, I guess wasn't smaller, but so yeah, good guy, and it should be a good match with him defending against Jeff King, who is another graduate of the Stride School. Um, because of the time limit, because there is a baseball game going on, and traditionally we did a few matches, they played the baseball game, and then we did a couple more matches. But this year it is all wrestling and then matches. So a big eight, or I'm sorry, yeah, 8 men, but four teams, tag team fatal four-way with Brian Richards and Bull Bronson, the boys. Dysfunction and El Magnifico and Savion Ayers, who was another one of those guys that was getting really honing his craft and then got hurt and sat out for a bit. I think he's back doing some indie shows, but how'd you come up with this concept of a fatal four-way tag match?
Well, the original plan was dysfunction in the boys. I wanted to do. I just the boys are making a name for themselves on the indies, and they're getting real popular, and they're kind of figuring out their style, from what I've seen and what I've watched, and then there's not too many, in my opinion. I've said this on our podcast before, but there's not too many that I think are as good as Brandon Espinoza.
Hmm.
He's just really talented. He's just really good. And I really thought that the boys and dysfunction would be a good match. And then, like you said, there was going to be a tag match before and after. And then the show's just going on before the baseball game. There's nothing after. It's just before. So I had to be creative with the matches, and so I really thought that would be a fun match to have. I was going to have another singles match, blah blah blah. But anyway, I know, you have Savion, who's popular, people really like him. El Magnifico, who's popular, people really like him. So you put them in there, and then have Bull and Brian, who Brian is, uh, Brian Richards he's always been one of my favorite people to book because he just does, I mean, whatever. I mean, he was a security once for, for Dexter Roswell.
Yeah.
He's done in my he was beautiful Brian Richards where he brought roses out. I mean, he's always been a great entertainer, and he always got that aspect. No matter if I had him against Magnifico or against Curly, he always got the entertainment side of it. And he always, and man, for outdoor shows or fair shows, I know he does a lot of death match type of stuff, but the entertainment side of what he does with what I book is awesome. And then I just obviously I love Bull. So, I've wrestled Bull. There's three people, that I've wrestled a ton, and Bull is one of them, where, I've wrestled Bull so many times, and he and Bull always, as he's this big monster, but he's always done an amazing job of putting me over, making me look good, understanding like, if Heath Hatton body slams this 500-pound guy, what that looks like to the crowd, and he was always willing to do that. And he was always willing to let me body slam him, or, and he just was always, great to me. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think you have a good mixture of veterans and then, new guys that are coming up, and you have, the boys who are going to be crowd favorites who, and they're understanding that side of things. So I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be a fun match.
Yeah, and a lot of the guys involved in this match, as we talked about with Justin and Jeff King, are Stride graduates. Brad, Bud Galloway, and Derek Gage. I know Derek didn't come through Stride, but he kind of connected through Stride towards the end there. We saw him coming through, but like you said, he and Bud have made a name for themselves on the indie scene here in Southern Illinois. When you see guys who you've trained, and some of them have, we were talking about Peyton Ayers earlier, who went on and was on an episode of Young Rock for NBC a few years ago. So when you see guys that have kind of come through Stride as not just performers, but guys that you helped mold and train and get them going, you talked about it earlier, you're a teacher, so it's probably your natural instinct to want to help those guys and women grow and succeed and move on and advance their careers and hopefully land something bigger outside of the Southern Illinois independent wrestling scene.
I enjoy seeing it. I'm a wrestling fan, obviously, and so people still send me stuff, and I still try to watch if somebody posts something or they share it. I still try to watch. I don't get to as much. I mean, I'm pretty busy, and that's kind of been why I haven't been as involved in wrestling. I feel like there's two different types of people. There's the Undertaker who, and I'm not comparing myself to them, but the Undertaker who said he didn't like being at shows because he wanted to get out there and wrestle. And then there's Adam Pierce who's like, "Oh, I'm done. I love being back. I love not doing it." When I'm at a wrestling show, I want to do it. Like
Mm.
it's hard for me to just sit there and watch it. Like I want to be out there. I want to entertain. I I want to be working. I want to be, bumping. And I just physically I can't do it. My knee is completely shot. It's done for. And so I know I can't do it all the time, but I still love it. And I still love what I got to do. And I think stride, man, I saw a picture the other day of, there was probably 15 guys that we helped get through. And that's probably where I will toot my horn is I started Stride for that reason only, as I wanted to give people a place to train locally that I could help and that I could, not take credit for, but I just wanted them to give them a place to wrestle. But
Yep.
then on the other hand, uh, I I put myself through a lot and I did a lot to be able to provide and learn and give an atmosphere that they could learn. And I know there were times where I was tough on people and I was hard on people, but I wanted them to be able to, if I wasn't around or I wasn't there, to be able to, protect themselves or stand up for themselves. And I think there's a lot of people that have done that, that have really went on to do great things. Like you mentioned, Peyton Ayers, every time I see Peyton, he thanks me for all I did for him every single time. Just, goes out of his way to tell me how thankful he is. And stuff like that goes a long way. And you see these guys, that are having success. And there were some that I trained, that I was in there every day with that like gave me, when I started Stride, it was probably the dumbest thing I did, but uh, I had Red Daniels, Frank, Scott Phoenix, Dexter Roswell. I mean, I had these guys, and there was nobody to take bumps from them. So I'm the one that had to take all these moves and take all this stuff. And so and it was me, and there were guys that caught on really quick, and there were guys I didn't catch on. And then as time went on and guys added on, and then as guys got more advanced, but a lot of times it was just me in there taking these moves from these guys. And so you get a special bond. And then as time went on, other guys could teach, and Ray Daniels taught for a while, and Roger taught for a while, and Spade taught, and you have, but they were all under the umbrella, and they were all under, I think, me teaching them and me helping them and me showing them, booking stuff. And now I know they're, guys that I grew up in the business with are continuing it on. Like I know Farmer Billy Hills is training people now. And I mean, Farmer Billy Hills is amazing. I mean, you're not going to find somebody who knows more about wrestling than he does. I mean, we grew up in it together, and he had failures and I had failures. And so anyway, it's to see them all be successful. And I mean, to see these guys on Young Rock or seeing Daniel Eads on NXT in the past, it's pretty rewarding. It's pretty, because I know, how hard it was for me to get there, and how much sacrifice I had to make. I mean, you remember all the Heath Hatton corny workout videos I posted, and just, I mean, and I did all that to try to get my name out there, to try just to like, back then there was really no way, we didn't have what we have now. So
Right.
back then it was like you did anything and everything you could to put your name out there. And I'm proud of myself in a sense that I did that and I created that, so these guys can have it now. And now there's other companies in the area, and I think they're doing well. I think they're doing great. I mean, people post videos and post stuff, and it looks like they're doing great, and it looks like people are having success. And people are posting, I mean, thanks to Denny. Denny's always
Oh
posting
yeah.
videos of shows, and I try to watch, what he posts. And and it's been a great experience for me coming out of it to sit and watch these kids that I helped. and to see them have success is pretty nice.
It has been an amazing ride, and it's hard to believe, but like even back in the heyday of for when I say heyday for when I got involved in the TV was happening with AEPW, that's been 15 years. And time just flies, and with having kids, how you know Jada was probably in pre-K, if even, when you started wrestling, and now she's off to college, and it's just time just goes by so fast and is so crazy. And you mentioned, missing it and getting in the ring, and you are going to be a part of this show on Thursday night, to June 18th at the Bash at the Ballpark. You and I are teaming up once again to take on Axe Allward and Gaylord Stevens, and I love those guys, and I know you have a fondness for Axe. I think you named him your number one pick, and when we did our top 10 Stride performers. So tell me about this match. Tell me about Axe and Gaylord, and why you had to have them as part of this show.
Well, when I messaged, like I said, when I was going to have the show, and anyway, it's kayfabe or not, Axe is my favorite person to wrestle in the
Mhm.
world. I've wrestled him more than anybody else. He's just he's so good. I mean, he's just so talented. He understands the entertainment aspect of it, and then he looks great. And then, I mean, and then Gaylord, he just speaks for himself. I mean, he's just one of the funniest people. I mean, just the other day, I mean, one of my buddies who's not really a wrestling fan asked, he goes, "Whatever happened to that guy with the Nintendo glove?" And because he came to some of my earlier shows, and anyway, I just originally, like I said, I was gonna do a thing with Axe for the title and me. And anyway, I was bouncing around different ideas, and then I landed when I asked him if Gaylord would come, and then when Gaylord agreed to come, then okay, well, now I got to get Gaylord involved, and he could have managed Axe and it would have been fine, but then I knew, you know, you were a mark, and you were always looking for an opportunity to get back in the ring. And I know when I messaged you and I said me and you were tagging, you were like, "No, seriously, are you serious?" I was like, "I'm dead serious."
Yeah.
And so I mean, and then there's certain times in my career where I'm like, I look back and like there were some awful times where it was just like it wasn't fun, and like I felt like I was being, I guess, bullied or held back, or like you have a group of guys that like are jealous and they're holding you back and they're pushing you back. And then but you have times where like I look back and it was like driving to St. Louis with Daniel Eads, and like working for Larry Madisick, and talking to him, and like, and then times like AAPW and like that time, and working with Axe, and then working with Carnage. And so you have these times, or going to Alney with when Josh had taken over, and getting to do all that stuff. And like there's so many times, like I hate that my Facebook got hacked and deleted, but like just the other day I was going through my Instagram, and it comes up where I tagged with Colt Cabana, and I
Mhm.
completely forgot I did that. Completely forgot. And there was a time with Bill Dundee in Tennessee. I forgot I did that. I wrestled Brian Christopher in Tennessee. I forgot I did that. And there's all these things that like had happened that I just completely forgot that I did. And like, and because there are probably times where I was felt like I maybe kind of blocked it out. Not that I loved working those people, and they're fond memories. But and then one of the most funs I had was tagging with you, because people that don't know, when you're main event of a tag match, at a bigger show, which Stride, we were doing when me and you were champs. I mean, we did that show for some more people that you champs, and maybe we did a fatal four way or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so there's all these spots, and you put in all these moves, and to people behind the scenes, like I'm very particular in how I work. Like I think to make sense and I call a lot of it in the ring. Like I do a lot of things on the fly where like I listen to the crowd and I'm probably very difficult to work with because uh I want to listen and I want to know what the crowd is wanting and I'm trying to keep them engaged. And you have somebody like Kevin who has no clue how to call stuff on the fly and then he forgets stuff anyway. And so I just remember just you being nervous and us calling all these spots and you not remembering two of them and you just being completely lost running around out there and it just to me it was fun because there was no pressure, there was no like you know, I mean when you're wrestling whoever, on a OVW semi-main event,
Mhm.
there's nerves and there's pressure and there's stuff like that. Or, when you're wrestling this guy, at a WWE tryout, in Tampa, Florida, it's great that you're there, but the pressure and the nerves and
Yeah.
like, I mean, I wrestled a private tryout and, some of my idols told me I had no future in this business and I was the worst wrestler they ever seen,
Yeah.
and, so there's times like that where wrestling was like, like, are you, you wrestle and for this guy in Tennessee and you think you have this great match and you come back and the promoter tells you it's terrible. So to book this match was like some of my happiest moments was doing stuff with Gaylord and Axe and then tagging with you. There's just certain times that were like that was like my happy moments in
Mhm.
wrestling and those were the moments that I missed. And you want to like I just gotta not relive it, but just now we could go out there and it could be like Triple H and Shawn versus Undertaker and Kane and everything just fall apart and it'd be the worst thing anybody's ever seen. But if that's the case, I mean, I at least we're doing it in Marion, Illinois, instead of in front of a few hundred people instead
Yeah.
of on a pay-per-view in front of millions.
Exactly. And I'm counting on the three of you to carry me through it once again. It's going to be a fun night though. It really is. And I hope that people after work will come out and check it out. It is on a Thursday night. Again, check out the Thrillbillies page. We'll have the links to how you can get tickets and all that good stuff. But anything else about this show or about Stride? I know we talked earlier about the fall fundraisers that we've done in the past couple of years for Stride. Are you looking ahead to that at this point yet, or are you kind of waiting to see how things go this Thursday night, or what's the future? Because anytime we post about Stride having a show, the first question is Stride back for good? And I, you
Yeah.
know, we're never officially done. It feels like it's just we come back and do shows, and we get messages on the Facebook page. I message you all the time about we've had people asking to ref this show. We've had people asking to work this show. So when there's, I think Stride has built that reputation of when there's a show, people want to be involved and be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably do the show again in the fall, the fundraiser. I enjoy doing that. The students at the school enjoy seeing it. Um, it's really hard. And that's I would do more shows, like I said, this guy messaged about doing one, and I was like, I really don't want to do it. The problem is honestly getting the ring set up,
Hmm.
tearing the ring down, getting everything like with my job being a teacher and an athletic director, it's really hard. I
Oh,
mean, I'm at the school sometimes 6 days a week. If, part of my job requires like supervision at ball games, being an athletic director, I got to be at a lot of the athletic events and we're junior high and high school. So
yeah.
during the fall, I got junior high baseball and softball going on. And then I also have volleyball going on. Well, then during the winter, you got basketball, cheerleading. I coach basketball. And then after that, it goes right in. And a lot of these sports are 5, 6 days a week. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard for me to commit and be like, if I could just show up and run a show and then that'd be one thing. But I
Right,
can't.
right.
Or I'm too much of a perfectionist as it is,
Yeah,
and that's kind of why I left wrestling anyway, because I had one foot in and one foot out, and I felt like I just I didn't like being that guy. And
yeah.
so now it's like, we I can do these shows 2 or 3 times a year with a stride to where I can see my friends, like all these guys, you and Axe and Farmer Billy Hills, Bull Bronson, all these different guys, that I've, I mean, and I use those guys because that's who I came up with. And
Mhm.
you spend hours in a car with these guys, or I mean, you're sleeping, me and Daniel Eads would sleep in my car. I mean, just you have all these guys that you have these moments with where like, and so you want to see them and you want to see where they're at. And, I mean, like this is crazy. I'm in Walmart the other day and I saw Bull Bronson and Carnage in
Really?
Walmart. I'm like, how often do you have three professional wrestlers in a Walmart at the same
Right.
time? And it's a huge deal because you don't see these guys, and so like that's a lot of doing it, and then also like um, you know. I've said it 1,000 times. All I ever wanted to be was a professional wrestler. That's all I ever wanted to be. I never wanted to have a real job. I never wanted to. I just got out my senior magazine the other day, my that we got our senior year, and actually, I wrote the poem that was in the
Oh,
front of
wow.
it. Don't remember writing it, so it wasn't good. So don't give me any credit. But anyway, it said in there that I wanted to be in the WWF wrestler, and my favorite TV show was Monday Night Raw. And so I mean, having a show a couple times a year gives me that itch that I still like to scratch, because even watching wrestling today, I just get like, I mean, the other day was at home and I was watching a wrestling match that somebody sent me, and I got real excited and I went to the gym and did a bunch of cardio and was like, and then I got done and I was like, what am I doing? I can't do
Yeah.
this. Like, so anyway, having this show, so that's kind of where Stride's at. I mean, we're going to continue to do them just because, like you said, there is a call for people. There is a desire. People do, for whatever reason, we made it work for a long time, and I mean, we even made it work through COVID. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they'll always be in my heart, in the area's heart, where people can do it. But then I don't want to ever take away or compete with the other companies that are here having success, because
Sure.
it can't be watered down. And I took a step back, and now it's time for them to kind of put their stamp and build their stuff up. And so, something like this on a Thursday night, I feel like it's not competing with anybody. It's not, so
Yeah, absolutely.
that's kind of what I think what we need to do.
I agree, and I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. And again, fans can check it out. It is coming up this Thursday night, 5:30 p.m. at Mountain Dew Park. That is in Marion, Illinois, home of the Thrillbilly. So a little Prospect League baseball going on after the game. Tyler, anything else you want to add before we wrap up this week's episode?
That's it. Just come out Thursday. Enjoy the show.
All right, do what the man said. We'll see you then, and we will talk to you soon.